Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Matters of Faith, the radio show. Matters of Faith is a show designed to bring issues of interest to you, the listening and viewing audience, that will put a biblical perspective on everyday issues. I am your host, the Reverend Dr. J. Lauren Russell, and it is my job to engage you in stimulating dialogue that's inspiring, encouraging, and motivating, dialogue and conversations that will help you build your determination, your commitment, and your character, conversations that will help you keep the faith. Everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith. 1 John chapter 5, verse 4. And now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, without further ado, it is time for Matters of Faith, the radio show. Everyone born of God overcomes the world. It's Monday, January 8, 2024. It's 8 p.m. and it's time for the radio show. I am your host and producer, Reverend Dr. J. Lauren Russell, and tonight we're talking about the article and the topic, There But By the Grace of God. And my very special guest, my very first guest of the year 2024, is Reverend Dr. Zuleika Adams. Make sure you telephone and tell a friend. And for the very first time, we're broadcasting on the Matters of Faith YouTube channel. So telephone, tell a friend, subscribe, like, and share the Matters of Faith YouTube channel, because tonight we're talking about There But By the Grace of God with Reverend Dr. Zuleika Adams. Please don't forget our sponsors and advertisers, the JLR Company and J. Lauren Russell Consulting, LLC. For all of your church financial consulting needs, we have a website, www.jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. That's jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. Or telephone us at 718-328-8096, 718-328-8096. If you need a church loan, if you need to develop your property, if you want to know how to maintain your church property, if you need to train your trustees, if you need evangelism training, give us a call. We'll help. It's not about the castle. It's about the kingdom. Matters of Faith, the book. Through our Cash App, $ Matters of Faith, the book is $23.92. You can send your check or money order to the Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. That's Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035, and address it to the JLR Company. You can also get it as an ebook. Just go to www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Once again, www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Check out the Eat Okra app for all black-owned restaurants all over the nation. Yes, that's right. Eat Okra. And then subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. We are now broadcasting Matters of Faith on our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and share it with a friend. And also, get your subscription to Better Mag magazine today. A 2-year subscription is only $27.50. Go to www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com. And now the article, There But By the Grace of God. And that article can be found in my column, Matters of Faith, at the Bronx Chronicle, www.thebronxchronicle.com. Scroll down until you find my column, Matters of Faith, and there you will find the article, There But By the Grace of God. You can also find it at the Yonkers Insider, www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. The column is carried in Better Mag magazine, www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com. It can also be found in Pamela's Big Heart newsletter. There But By the Grace of God. Mark chapter 5, verses 1 through 8, today's Living Bible. When they arrived at the other side of the lake, a demon-possessed man ran out from a graveyard just as Jesus was climbing from the boat. This man lived among the gravestones and had such strength that whenever he was put into handcuffs and shackles, Mark chapter 5, verses 1 through 8, today's Living Bible. When they arrived at the other side of the lake,
A demon-possessed man ran out from a graveyard just as Jesus was climbing from the boat. This man lived among the gravestones and had such strength that whenever he was put into handcuffs and shackles, as he often was, he snapped the handcuffs from his wrist and smashed the shackles and walked away. No one was strong enough to control him. All day long and through the night, he would wander among the tombs and in the wild hills, screaming and cutting himself with sharp pieces of stone. When Jesus was still far out in the water, the man had seen him and had run to meet him and fell down before him. And he cried out with a loud voice and said, "What have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God that you do not torment me." For he said to him, "Come out of the man, unclean spirit." There, but by the grace of God. Not meaning to be redundant, but a few years ago, I wrote an article that made mention of the illness known as seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. I think it is named appropriately because of the marked increase of sadness associated with seasonal depression that affects over 10 million Americans during the holiday season. When we add to that the number of people who suffer from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, attention deficit disorder, ADD, bipolarization, autism, post-traumatic stress disorder, the lingering effects of COVID, cataclysmic world events, or even any number of the traumatic experiences that people encounter day by day, it is easy to see why so many people are sad and in need of psychological help. Unfortunately, psychological help is not as readily accessible or as willingly received as is medical assistance. In our text, we are introduced to a man who was demon-possessed and lived in a cemetery. The fact that he lived in a graveyard, had supernatural strength, screamed incoherently, and cut himself continually lets us know that he was clearly not in his right mind. He needed psychological help. His situation was even more complicated because he was demon-possessed. Matthew Henry's commentary says the devil got possession of him, and the effect of it was not, as in many, a silent melancholy, but a raging frenzy. He was raving mad. Unquote. He needed more than psychological help. He needed divine healing. The behavior and supernatural strength of this demonically possessed man are some of the same symptoms and behaviors people today exhibit who have disorders that can be identified using modern medical technology. While many of those disorders can be treated and even controlled with psychotherapy and or medications, there are those whose illnesses are of demonic origin and cannot. Thankfully, we see in the text that the demons will respond and submit to the power and the authority of Jesus Christ. I met patients in my early adulthood while serving as a mental hygiene therapist aide at a mental institution who were more intelligent, creative, intuitive, and reasonable than anyone that I met before or since. In most cases, what made them insane, an extremely derogatory term used to describe people with psychological challenges, was just one little straw that broke the proverbial camel's back. I discovered that the idiom, "there but by the grace of God go I," is a reality. It is only by God's grace that I am able to maintain my peace of mind. There are many among us who are suffering from one or many forms of psychological disorders that are identifiable and treatable through medications and other psychotherapies, but others are suffering demonically and need a spiritual treatment, either directly or indirectly. Every believer in Christ can play a role in changing their lives regardless of the type of malady they are enduring. We can direct them to or help them find qualified persons to help them through scientific and technological means, or introducing them to the same Jesus who commands demons, "Come out of the man, unclean spirit." Jesus was more than willing to heal the grave-dwelling crazed man, and he is more than willing to heal any of our sisters and brothers. That's why the Lord expects us to do what we have been equipped to do and leave the rest to him. There, but by the grace of God. that could be you or I. Be blessed. Now, here's my question again for the last and final time. What can Nope. We're not doing it for the last time. We're doing it for the first time. So y'all excuse me. I'm learning this one is new to me. So I'm getting it together. So here we go. We're going to do this again. But here is the question that I'm asking tonight.
Now, here's my question to you. What can we do as followers of Christ to help someone who is suffering from a mental illness? Let me ask this very practical question. What can we do as followers of Christ to help someone who is suffering from a mental illness? Matters of Faith family, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce to some and to present to others my very first guest for 2024, Reverend Dr. Zolika Adams, who is the assistant pastor of the Mount Carmel Baptist Church, where she has been serving for the past 31 years. She is the spiritual leader of the Sisters with a Vision Women's Ministry that leads transformative healing retreats that seeks to, quote, bind up the wounds of the brokenhearted, end quote. She served as former chief of staff of Reverend Dr. Anthony Lowe in his role as moderator of the United Missionary Baptist Association. Dr. Adams holds a master's degree in social work from Hunter College, is a licensed Gestalt psychotherapist after completing a 4-year postgraduate institute. She is a board member of the Gestalt Center of Psychotherapy and Training. She earned a master's degree in divinity from New York Theological Seminary and a Doctor of Ministry degree from that esteemed university known as Drew in the area of congregational organizational growth and development, specializing in servant leadership. Dr. Adams has had a long history of public service. She retired as Vice President of Behavioral Health for Palladia, Inc., a nonprofit social service agency. And 10 years ago, she launched Adams Consultant Group that provides professional, executive, and spiritual coaching, as well as consultant services and retreats to nonprofit agencies around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. She is in private practice for individual coaching and psychotherapy sessions, specializing in grief, spiritual direction, sex, and relationship addiction. Dr. Adams has been published 4 times
in Essence magazine on The Black Superwoman, a 2-part series on love as an addiction and the art of forgiveness. She also co-authored an article for the National Association of Social Workers Journal on social work and womanist practice. Reverend Dr. Adams is a mother and grandmother of 2, who next to Jesus are the joys of her life. So Matters of Faith family, will you welcome with me my very first guest for 2024, my friend, this phenomenal woman of God. She is an awesome ambassador for Christ, Reverend Dr. Zolika Adams. So I think I got you that time. I think I got you all in. So in my share. And welcome to Matters of Faith. And thank you so very much for being a part of this thing tonight, because this is wonderful. You're the first guest in 2024. So thank you very much for kicking it off for me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Good to be here.
Thank you. Now, I have a question for you. Since we are literally in this new year, and they heard your bio because I just gave it to them, but they know a little bit about you. But tell us something about you that we don't know and we really should know.
Oh, okay. Well, I can tell you a couple things. In terms of my spirituality, I am very much involved in the contemplative Christian leaning. I meditate regularly, and I'm very interested and committed to deepening my interior life spiritually, and I incorporate that into my practice and my ministry. The other thing you need to know is that I'm an Afrobeat and reggae music aficionado, and as well as jazz and gospel. I am a music lover of all kinds. And so I guess that's a good start.
That is a very good start. I like this. I like this contemporary Christian leaning. That's a terminology that's not as commonly used as
Yeah.
I'm just a contemporary gospel person, you know. But talk about that for me. What is a contemporary Christian leaning person? What does that mean to the layperson that doesn't quite understand all of that?
Well, I think I have an observation, and part of what I love about our church is our liveliness and our approach to worship and how we praise God and the instrumentation and the music. At the same time, I do wonder about our capacity to sit still and listen to the voice of God. And so when I talk about my contemplative leanings, I'm talking about working on my interior self as I grow in God. And for so many of our churches, that is not something that we emphasize. We emphasize, praying out loud, clapping, the whole embodied experience. But what about be still and know? I think that there is profound value in stillness. There's profound, there's a shifting and allowing the Holy Spirit to do some deep archaeological work on us as we start to excavate those carnal parts of ourselves so that we can make room for God. And so my contemplative leaning is to encourage people to do that, to ask the kinds of questions that would help them do an interior glance. And so that we could work on those things that actually get in the way of walking and being the ambassador, the word that you used, I loved it, being an ambassador for Christ. Could you imagine a church community where people were mindful of each other? A church community where, because of their commitment to meditation and prayer in a contemplative way, that people's attitudes were in check, that people had a handle on anger. Could you imagine what kind of glory you could get out of that? The kinds of ways that we could do ministry that we really could live up to. You know that they are my disciples by how they love each other. And so this is something that I am very committed to and very involved with.
You know, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think that in my estimation, in my observation, that we are a lot of times into the excitement and we miss the enlightenment.
Yeah.
It sometimes, because I'm a DJ. I mean, God's sakes, that's what I did, right? I love that. But then there are some times and I have to literally just withdraw and look reflectively. I got to do a lot of introspection, because if I don't, then I'll miss something on the inside.
Absolutely.
And what's on the inside that's generating the value on the outside. But if everything is noisy, I think sometimes we love noise so much that silence scares us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We used to have, as part of our worship, a time of silence where people could center themselves and be grounded, to hear from God, to still oneself, and to prepare the ground for worship. And I noticed that during that quiet time, people use that time to bathroom. They use that time to take snacks out of their bags for the kids. They use that time to whisper to their neighbor. And it really kind of signaled to me that we have to teach this. This is something that not only do we have to teach, but we have to express it as something desirable as part of worship. And over time, the time that people could sit got less and less. And so it's not really a part of our work. We don't have a quiet space during worship. However, we have shifted some other kind of ways. So we do have, I have taught several times, and one of our current ministers, we teach Lectio Divina, the quiet way of reading the Bible and engaging scripture. Especially during Advent, we do Visio Divina, where people gaze at an image very quietly and see what God reveals. And so we have quiet meditation during high liturgical seasons like Advent and Lent. And so we've come at it a different way. And what I'm noticing is that our numbers are growing.
Yeah.
For people to sign up, because this is a separate thing. You got to come on Saturday morning, or you got on an additional Bible study, and the numbers are growing. People are seeking communion with God in a different kind of way. Yeah. This world is so crazy. You know, when God says, you know, my peace I give to you, not as the world gives. And I think people are seeking that peace, but we have to offer it. We have to teach it. We have to make it okay for people to be quiet.
You know, that's so interesting. I remember I used to do a lot of retreats. I was part of what is called the African, what was it called? The National Evangelical Association. And we did retreats. I started with them. Actually, I went down to train to do a financial session with them, to do some training for them. And of course, I stayed because I was a part of it. And they did this piece, and it was in worship service. And they just were quiet and this like a silent hymn, not a silent hymn, but a quiet hymn.
Yes.
And we now I don't sing. I'm not gifted to sing. I'm a preacher that does not sing. And you probably don't want me to either. So I was listening, but I was just literally just meditating as others were doing that. And it was like this almost like a and I'm sitting there and I felt this sense of peace that just permeated and it just surrounded me. I've never felt that before. I said, oh my God. And it was, you know, it was in the Poconos up in the mountains. So I felt that mountain experience, that mountaintop experience. And I was like, and every time we would go there, I would say, we have to do that. We have to do that. And then of course, as an old martial artist, meditation is important.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people can't meditate because when you said it well, you said in that quiet moment, instead of taking the time to be quiet, to listen, to be silent, people fall asleep. And you know, sleep is doing something. When you're meditating, you don't want to do anything. You just want to woosah and let the atmosphere, if you will, just fill the room and fill you. But if you fall asleep, that's doing something. You don't want to fall asleep. Stay awake and just meditate. Feel the spirit.
I think I want to challenge you a little bit with that.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, you don't mind being challenged?
No, I don't mind at all. That's why I'm here.
Okay. When people first learn how to be silent or they first learn how to meditate, they often do fall asleep.
Absolutely. They can't do it for 3 minutes. They fall asleep.
But that's okay because God appreciates the effort.
Right.
And God meets us there while we nap.
Right.
And the Holy Spirit is still working while we nap. You know, when people first learn how to get silent and turn away from the world, the first thing that happens is like the mind goes crazy. They start thinking about everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It really does take practice and commitment.
Yes, absolutely.
Hard. But if we understand that this is a date we have with God, if we understand it, that we have our alone time, just like in any relationship, doesn't matter whether you fall asleep or you're wide awake. He's there with us, just enjoying our company, looking at us with our head nodding and drool coming out, saying, look at my child, look at that. Even though they fall asleep, it's okay. I still love them. Because the more we do it, the more we're able to stay awake.
Right. And that was my point, by the way. I wasn't saying that you can't do it, but it is a learned practice. It's something that you develop over time. So when you recognize that you fell asleep, then okay, the next time you can go another 30 seconds, not a minute, but 30 seconds. And then after a while, you can do it for 5 minutes. And then it's interesting because those thoughts that you say just dance through our head, you can look at them like you're watching like commercials on television. You can just see them and you won't stop them. You just watch them as they go from one side to the other. And some of them will be funny. And you find yourself laughing at the thoughts that run through your head. But then you can control those a lot better because you know how they're functioning in your mind. Instead of them taking control, I know what's happening. I can see them and say, oh, okay, that's what that is. So I get it. Yeah, so that was my point. But I thank you for pushing back. And yeah, it was a good challenge. I like that. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And I hope somebody gets that, to really hear that, because meditation and spending that time, having that time set aside to do that is critically important. It's critically important.
It's very important. And it's healing. It's also healing, and it allows the Holy Spirit to be our therapist.
Mm.
It allows the Holy Spirit to pinpoint where we're broken and where we're wounded. Because as we meditate, those things that we've held in our bellies start to come up to the surface. And when they come up to the surface, it's then we can look, we can glance upon those things, and we can acknowledge those things, and we can pray over those things, or we can confess some things, and the Holy Spirit can go to work on us. So it's a blessing all the way around.
Yeah. I think that's an awesome thing, an awesome way to start this conversation tonight. What can we do? And there's a question I placed on the for everybody to address. What can we do to help someone with a mental illness? But of course, the topic is there, but by the grace of God. And so you were the inspiration for this article because I knew that you were coming, and I wanted to make sure that we were able to tap into and talk about the things that really matter today, because with COVID and all the other things that we're dealing with, this idea of being in psychological turmoil is more prevalent today than it was the day before yesterday. And so I wanted to make sure that we're here and to open it up in this way, talking about this contemplative Christian living and learning how to exercise these different aspects of your walk and faith with the Lord is very important to our Christian walk and our sound mind and body.
Yes.
So I was curious about that, and I wanted to kind of open that up for you to kind of take it any way you wanted to go with it, because I know you read the article because I sent it to you. And I read it, of course, again, so that everybody's on the same page. And we're doing this on YouTube tonight for the very first time. So this is an experiment to see how things work out. But the content is the same and the objective is the same. We want to take sound biblical principle and make it practical.
Mhm.
So my question to you tonight, first question anyway, because I have thousands of questions for you because I've always respected you because I know your history, I know what you do, and you do it so well. But what is it that that's creating for us the problems that we're having, that sometimes we think that because we are in relationship with the Lord that we should be immune to, perhaps, and we're
Mhm.
not.
Well, first of all, the Lord never promised us that it would be easy, but he did promise victory.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Luke 4:18 tells us that he came to bind up the wounds of the brokenhearted. So
Mm,
there's an assumption that there was a lot of brokenheartedness
mm,
going
mm,
around, that there was a lot of woundedness, that there was blindness, and there was captivity, and there was all of that um, the Lord came, he said, to help you out. And so when we start from a position that all of us have wounds, all of us have trauma, all of us have had hurts, and that we are walking around with these things, and nobody often knows what it's like. Imagine if we had a trauma informed church
mm.
where it was understood that we treat each other being fully conscious of that we're all hurt and we don't know when we're going to step on a landmine for somebody else.
Mm.
So therefore, since we know that, let's be kind, let's be compassionate, let's be mindful of people. Imagine if we had a church that cultivated
Mm.
that cultivated setting healthy boundaries so that we can love each other and not feel oppressed by each other. Imagine that. And so even when I read your article and certainly the text that you suggested, I thought about this poor man
Mm.
who was all by himself. So we thought. His mental condition had isolated him from community. Except there's one line in there that's a little interesting to me. And it says that even though he was bound many times, he still broke the chains.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody tied him up,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Somebody
And it had
tied
to be more than one because he had superhuman strength.
superhuman. And we know that that's real. There are some types of mental illnesses that people do have superhuman strength. I remember working in a psychiatric center where a young woman um, was having an episode. She was hearing voices similar to this man. And we had to take her from the psych hospital to a regular hospital because she had banged her head so hard.
Mm.
And when she did not want to go, and when we got downstairs, she said, I am not going. The van pulls up, and in her strength, she pulled the door completely off the van.
Wow.
You know how hard that is to
What
do?
do I know? You kidding? That's like everybody's like,
She, I'm not going, pulled the door off the van, threw it on the ground, and it was quite an event. I've seen people pull the whole plumbing of the water fountain out of the wall because
mm,
the kind of strength
mm-hmm.
that has come. So when we look at this man, he's isolated except for the people that don't know what to do with him. He's walking around talking to himself. He's not sleeping. He's crying out all night. The only place that he could find is the grave place. And I wondered about that. Is that the only place he could find? Because it was the only place that it was quiet, that somehow he could quiet those voices.
Yeah.
To only find peace among the dead. Did he go there because he knew nobody else would be there? And he was afraid of what he could do in his current state. And so maybe that was a way of him protecting his community. Maybe that was an act of love to actually go there.
Yeah.
But he was so tormented. He was so tormented. And, you know, when we read further in the text, when Jesus delivers him from the demons, Jesus tells him a very curious thing. He said, the man wanted to stay with him.
Yes, he did. That's right.
It's like, listen, you're my deliverer, you're my healer, you're the person who actually asked me about what's going on with me. You're the person that listened when I said there's many of them. You know, there's a very clear instructions about, as a community, how we can respond to people with mental health. We can listen. We can ask them what's going on with you. We could manage our tone of voice. Jesus did not come at him angry. He asked him with curiosity. I'm curious about what's going on with you. And I'm sure the man picked that up, and he had command hallucinations. He had hallucinations that were telling him what to do. And you have command hallucinations, you pretty much have to follow them for fear of punishment.
Right. That's right.
Right, because the hallucinations escalate. And so you have to obey those voices. But what did Jesus say? No, you can't stay with me, but I want you to go home and present yourself to your community and tell them about what God has done for you. He had somewhere to go.
And he had a person to be and a thing to do. Because other people were impacted by his behavior and by his illness. And so for them to see him, and the other interesting point that I saw, an interesting aspect of the text, is that those who herded the swine went back to see what had happened to him.
Yes.
Because their swine, 2,000 of them, ran into the sea and drowned themselves. And they said, we got to see what happened to him. And they found him sitting there, clothed in his right mind, in peace. Could you imagine what they might have thought when they saw him sitting there peacefully, clothed now in his right mind? He could think clearly.
But they still wanted him to go.
Oh, they definitely want him out. I mean, he was an economic burden to them. He's a problem for them. He cost them a lot of money.
Yeah, that was an economic decision.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they still wanted him to go. I would imagine he thought, I hope he doesn't have some friends like him that are coming.
Right.
But I'm curious about when he went home restored. How did the community receive him?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question.
And I think if we use our imaginations, then we can start to build a model for how we would want our church communities to respond to those of us who are suffering from severe mental illness.
Now, that's interesting because you said a couple of things. Number one, you talked about what would it look like if a church was compassionate and understood that we all had wounds and we all had trauma and we all had hurts, and that we loved them instead of piling on. And then, of course, what you just asked, those who are in the church who have these serious issues. And in some churches you can readily identify them, but they're there. And they're trying to, quote unquote, work out their soul salvation along with these issues that they're having. And a lot of people don't understand that. They don't really relate to that. And it's hard for them to deal with a person who has these types of issues. Now, as a professional, how do you, because I know they come to your church because you're an attraction. They know that you understand. They know that they come to you because they know that you understand. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that, Pastor?
Well, I've developed a spirit of hospitality. I welcome them. And my approach is pretty much not different than my approach to anybody. Hey, how you doing? You know, is all well with you? We have had times where people have started to decompensate while they are in the midst of service. And we've put together a protocol. And the protocol is this: if someone, we've developed what is a bandwidth that the congregation can deal with that doesn't terrify anybody. So if somebody's just sitting there gesturing and, you know, talking like this, we've done enough teaching that you don't have to worry about that. Right? If somebody gets up and they're pacing back and forth, then we have kind of an eye signal. So the nurses in the church work with me, the deacons work with me. I'm facing the congregation so they can see my face. And so we had somebody who really decompensated, was getting more and more boisterous and could not stop. And so I left the pulpit, and, you know, Dr. Lowe was fine with that. He said, look, these are your special people. Feel free to handle it. Right. I leave the pulpit and I go, and sometimes I sit next to them in the pew. And just my quiet presence helps them regulate. There are times when, if that does not happen, we have a nurse that I look to, and she comes, and I said, you know, I think maybe it's time for us to step in the narthex so you can get some air. You all right with that? Some air time. And, you know, most of the time they'll go. And of course, after that, you mind if I touch you? You mind if I help you up? Don't stand too close. Don't get too close. Voice modulated. Don't want to overstimulate anybody. And we have deacons at the back of the door that if it does get out of hand, they can help. So we have had times where I've gotten people out of the narthex, and then, you know, the voices got very loud and they were screaming and really dysregulated and needed probably to go to the hospital. And so we've had to call EMT a couple of times. And I stay with them while EMT is coming, and I say, you know, I think it's time for you to check in with the doctor. The voices seem to be getting louder and louder. Are they telling you to hurt yourself or anything? You think you're going to be all right till you get there and get help? And, you know, so I think the bottom line is showing respect and showing and understanding that I know that you are going through something right now, and this thing has gotten a hold of you. I don't fault you for it. I don't blame you for it, but you need a little extra help, and we're going to help you do that.
Now, Doc, you say that, and you do it passion, expertise. I'm thinking about the laypersons, the average person sitting in a church, even those who are in clergy, who don't have a clue as to how to deal with that. You said something that was, I used to work in mental health, so I recognize that, right? You said, you know, are the voices getting louder? Are they telling you to do things? Are they telling you to hurt yourself? And just saying that by itself gives them the assurance that, this is not just something that's a figment of my imagination. For to them, it's real, it's happening.
Yes.
And then when we as outsiders look and say, oh, nobody's talking to you, we don't hear anything, and they respond to what's happening in their world, so to speak, then that isolates them further, puts them further in the cemetery. Because now I can't, because you don't recognize that I'm actually going through something that
I'm
you
tormented.
can't see.
Yes.
Exactly.
Like the scripture said he was tormented.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking, how can we begin the process of equipping our people to be more sensitive, as you said, and to be more alert so that we can have protocols in place, not just because sometimes nurses, we'll notice if a person has having a medical issue, person's having a heart attack, because it's obvious, right? Because person clutches their chest and they fall over, whatever the case might be. But what about those who are having these episodes psychologically? How can we do that? What can we do?
We need to teach. We need to teach. We need to get past our own fear. We need to get past the stigma attached with mental illness, and we need to teach. We need to have materials in the narthex when people come in to give the message that there for the grace of God go any of us. We need to have a rack with, this is depression, anxiety. Are you suffering from bipolar? Are you suffering from schizophrenia? Giving the message that, are you suffering from diabetes? Do you have a heart condition?
Right.
That we take the sting out of it, as if we're blaming the victim in a sense. Right? And then we have professionals come and teach. I know at Mount Carmel, we did the mental health first aid, and we had over 100 people come.
Wow.
Yeah, so that people understand the basics. Does it turn them into, a psychotherapist? No, but what it does is that it softens the rigidity around, quote, crazy people.
Right.
And the first place we need to start is with ourselves. And I so like, therefore the grace, any of us could have a series of trauma that happened that would cause us to lose our mind. We are one trauma away.
So that proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back.
It could happen to any of us. And in this post-COVID time, where people still haven't grieved all the people that died during COVID, depression is rampant. Anxiety disorders about the uncertainty. Now it's coming back. RSV is here. Some people never rebounded from all the losses that they had before. The world is going crazy. There's violence everywhere. There are natural occurrences. I mean, the world is nuts. And for us as Black people, let us not forget that we also have historical trauma. We get triggered all the time. We deal with microaggressions all day long. And so the fact that we have as much mental health as we do have
is an amazing all by itself.
Amazing. It's truly a gift from God. But sometimes the pendulum swings. And then there are those that it is, a neurological, so the term neurodivergent, that there are some people whose brains are wired to perceive differently, to process differently. And initially, when that term was coined, it was about people on the spectrum, the autism spectrum. But now the term has broadened to those who are schizophrenic, to those whose brains just process sensory information differently. It's not an indicator of intelligence at all. It's a different way that the brain processes in the frontal cortex than other people. So there's neurotypical and then there's neurodivergent. Neurotypical are people who kind of mature at the rate that most people do, right? They master the tasks of growing up. They walk when the greatest percentile walk. They talk when the greatest percentile. They have organization and social skills at the greatest percentile. But so that's neurotypical, but neurodivergent people whose minds kind of are wired differently, they may not do that when everybody else does it, or they do it differently.
Right.
So they're differently abled. They're not disabled.
Right.
But they're differently able. And it's not an indicator of intelligence. And so some people are so shocked when they see someone that's neurodivergent or who has mental illness. They say, but they're so smart.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so we need to teach. We need to, what's the word I want to use? We need to embrace the fact that it could have been me. We need to embrace the fact that maybe it is me and I'm not telling anybody.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah.
We need to also embrace the fact that it could be me later.
So it could be me, it might be me, and it can be me.
That's right. Things can change in an instant. We know that. And so once we start with embracing and being kind to ourselves, so we can extend it to others, and then we need to teach. And we need to challenge each other around stigma. I remember I did some of this kind of teaching at Mount Carmel, and there's an exercise that I wish I could just take everywhere and do. And so you roll up a piece of paper, and the instruction to the person is, I want you to just talk about your day. And while they talk about their day, I take the paper and I'm hollering things in their ear.
Oh, I've seen that.
You're talking, but you don't make sense.
Right.
Nobody here likes you. They're out to get you.
Right.
And I don't let up.
Right.
And the most balanced people in the world, they get distracted.
Right.
They lose their place.
And they can push you away, but when they're in your head, you can't push it away. You can't stop it.
There is no exercise that I've done with people.
Wow.
Powerful.
Oh my God.
As that.
Can I tell you a story? Can I tell you this? I mean to cut you off because this always, I'll never forget this. I'll never forget the patient. I'll never forget the situation. I was talking to David Mendez, Manhattan State Psychiatric Center. We were in the day room, and I'm talking with David. David was a nice guy. We were talking and so forth. He was a little older than I was. And as I'm talking with him, he said, "Would you shut up?" And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "I'm not talking to you." I said, "What do you mean, David?" He said, "Don't you hear that?" I said, "No, I don't hear anything." He said, he never stops. He talks to me all the time. Would you just shut up? He says, he drives me crazy. He said, you know, and I could see that he was very, and I said, "David, what does he tell you?" He says, "All kinds of things." You know, he says, "The worst part is when he starts telling me that he wants me to hurt myself and hurt others." you know, and so I never forget this. He was on 5 milligrams of Melorol. Was it Melorol? I think that was called Meloril. And I'll
Mellow.
never forget it, right? Meloril, because we as a nurse's aide, we could give medications at that time.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. And that calmed him, that quieted that voice, but it didn't stop it.
No, no. It just puts it,
Quieted,
yeah, that's all it does.
right?
Yeah.
Makes it drunk, so can't talk to you or something, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I get it. Wow. Wow.
I would just like to go around the churches and do the exercise and then process. How did you feel afterwards?
I think
And
you should. You want listen, you want to start it with the chaplains or you want to start it with the associate ministers? We could do it there in those two places because I got the controls. I would love to do that with the associate ministers. I would love to do that.
and then process. What was it like?
Yes, yes.
Did you learn anything new about yourself?
Mm.
Now that you've had this experience, can you recall? Does it bring to mind anybody in your family that might be struggling? Have you had an experience like this with somebody you love? I mean, the conversation really goes places. And after that, then you have a group of people who are now sensitive to folks who are neurodivergent. They will never feel the same.
Got you. Got you. Got you. That's an amazing, amazing exercise. I'd like to do that. We'll plan it. We'll talk offline. We'll plan that.
Yeah, sure.
I'd like to do that because it's you know, because I think everybody needs to have that exposure, that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone needs to do that.
Challenge our assumptions about mental illness because we're all at risk.
Right, right, right.
And I think if we tell the truth, most people can pull up a time where they felt close to the edge. Remember the song, Don't Push Me Because I'm Close to the
Edge. I'm trying not to lose my
head.
It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
There it is, right there. We should play that. Anybody ever been there?
Absolutely. You know, I grew up with those guys.
Did you?
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
Child is born with no state of mind, blind to the ways of mankind. God was smiling on you, but he's frowning too because only God knows what you'll go through. You'll admire all the drug that you will admire all the dope dealers, drug makers, pimps, and the big money makers driving big cars, spending 20s and 10s, said you want to grow up to be just like them. Smugglers, burglars, gamblers, pickpockets, peddlers, even panhandlers. You say, I'm cool, I'm no fool. Then you wind up dropping out of high school. Then you're unemployed, all non-void, walking around like you're Pretty Boy Floyd. Turned stick-up kid, but look what you done did. Got set up for an 8-year bid. Now your manhood is took. And you're a Maytag. Spend the next 2 years as an undercover fag, being used and abused and served like hell till one day you were found hung dead in a cell. It was plain to see how your life was lost. You were cold and your body swung back and forth. But now your eyes sing the sad, sad song of how you lived so fast and died so young. That was Melly Mel. So don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder. And that changed the whole tenure of what rap music was all about. It changed everything. Because now we started talking about things that were socially, and it became personal. It wasn't just party and have fun. Now it became real. Spoke to the heart.
It talks about the traumas of being Black sometimes in everyday life.
Absolutely.
And how close to the edge, and how many times have we been close to the edge? And it talks about our need for survival skills.
Right, right.
And challenge the skills, survival skills that we use. Are they working or are they not working? Wow, you know the whole thing. I'm impressed.
Well, you know, I was a DJ. And I did that. That was what I did. I mean, you know, I wrote some things. I had some others I learned, and that's what we did. And so one of the guys used to live right up the street from me. Another guy, he's still with them. Furious Five, he's still with them. He used to DJ with me. He's with them now. He wasn't one of the Furious Five, but he's in that group and he tours with them today. Today. And he's from right down there. He's from right down there where Reverend Lowe is from. He's from one of those islands down there in South Carolina.
Get out of here.
Yep. Yep. Dear friend of mine. I mean, I've known him, since we were teenagers. Now, if you notice, I did put a screen up on the thing because I'm at the top of the hour. So what I want to do is I'm going to disappear for a moment. You can do likewise, and
Okay.
I'm going to take a minute and just go back and just introduce all of my sponsors and advertisers and read the article again and ask the challenge question. And then what we're going to do is begin looking at some of the comments that are being made in the chat and bring them into our conversation so that they can become a part of our conversation.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Wonderful. Okay.
So I want to go back for a moment. I'm going to go back here because I know that in the beginning I forgot to turn my sound on. So I want to make sure that everybody heard the new sound, the new intro to the show. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Matters of Faith, the radio show. Matters of Faith is a show designed to bring issues of interest to you, the listening and viewing audience, that will put a biblical perspective on everyday issues. I am your host, the Reverend Dr. J. Lauren Russell, and it is my job to engage you in stimulating dialogue that's inspiring, encouraging, and motivating, dialogue and conversations that will help you build your determination, your commitment, and your character, conversations that will help you keep the faith. Everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith. 1 John chapter 5, verse 4. And now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, without further ado, it is time for Matters of Faith, the radio show. Please don't forget our sponsors and advertisers, the JLR Company and J. Lauren Russell Consulting, LLC. For all of your church financial consulting needs, we have a website, www.jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. That's jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. Or telephone us at 718-328-8096, 718-328-8096. If you need a church loan, if you need to develop your property, if you want to know how to maintain your church property, if you need to train your trustees, if you need evangelism training, give us a call. We'll help. It's not about the castle. It's about the kingdom. Matters of Faith, the book. Through our Cash App, $ Matters of Faith, the book is $23.92. You can send your check or money order to the Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. That's Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035, and address it to the JLR Company. You can also get it as an ebook. Just go to www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Once again, www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Check out the Eat Okra app for all Black-owned restaurants all over the nation. Yes, that's right. Eat Okra. And then subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. We are now broadcasting Matters of Faith on our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and share it with a friend. And also, get your subscription to Better Mag magazine today. A 2-year subscription is only $27.50. Go to www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com. And now, here's my question again for the last and final. Nope, let's go back. Got it. And now the article. There, but by the grace of God. And that article can be found in my column, Matters of Faith, at the Bronx Chronicle, www.thebronxchronicle.com. Scroll down until you find my column Matters of Faith, and there you will find the article, There But By the Grace of God. You can also find it at the Yonkers Insider, www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. The column is carried in Better Mag magazine, www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com. It can also be found in Pamela's Big Heart newsletter. Mark chapter 5, verses 1 through 8, today's Living Bible. When they arrived at the other side of the lake, a demon-possessed man ran out from a graveyard, just as Jesus was climbing from the boat. This man lived among the gravestones and had such strength that whenever he was put into handcuffs and shackles, as he often was, he snapped the handcuffs from his wrist and smashed the shackles and walked away. No one was strong enough to control him. All day long and through the night, he would wander among the tombs and in the wild hills, screaming and cutting himself with sharp pieces of stone. When Jesus was still far out in the water, the man had seen him and had run to meet him and fell down before him. And he cried out with a loud voice and said, "What have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God that you do not torment me." For he said to him, "Come out of the man, unclean spirit." There, but by the grace of God. Not meaning to be redundant, but a few years ago, I wrote an article that made mention of the illness known as seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. I think it is named appropriately because of the marked increase of sadness associated with seasonal depression that affects over 10 million Americans during the holiday season. When we add to that the number of people who suffer from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, attention deficit disorder, ADD, bipolarization, autism, post-traumatic stress disorder, the lingering effects of COVID, cataclysmic world events, or even any number of the traumatic experiences that people encounter day by day, it is easy to see why so many people are sad and in need of psychological help. Unfortunately, psychological help is not as readily accessible or as willingly received as is medical assistance. In our text, we are introduced to a man who was demon-possessed and lived in a cemetery. The fact that he lived in a graveyard, had supernatural strength, screamed incoherently, and cut himself continually lets us know that he was clearly not in his right mind. He needed psychological help. His situation was even more complicated because he was demon-possessed. Matthew Henry's commentary says the devil got possession of him, and the effect of it was not, as in many, a silent melancholy, but a raging frenzy. He was raving mad. Unquote. He needed more than psychological help. He needed divine healing. The behavior and supernatural strength of this demonically possessed man are some of the same symptoms and behaviors people today exhibit who have disorders that can be identified using modern medical technology. While many of those disorders can be treated and even controlled with psychotherapy and or medications, there are those whose illnesses are of demonic origin and cannot. Thankfully, we see in the text that the demons will respond and submit to the power and the authority of Jesus Christ. I met patients in my early adulthood while serving as a mental hygiene therapist aide at a mental institution who were more intelligent, creative, intuitive, and reasonable than anyone that I met before or since. In most cases, what made them insane, an extremely derogatory term used to describe people with psychological challenges, was just one little straw that broke the proverbial camel's back. I discovered that the idiom, "There but by the grace of God go I," is a reality. It is only by God's grace that I am able to maintain my peace of mind. There are many among us who are suffering from one or many forms of psychological disorders that are identifiable and treatable through medications and other psychotherapies, but others are suffering demonically and need a spiritual treatment, either directly or indirectly. Every believer in Christ can play a role in changing their lives regardless of the type of malady they are enduring. We can direct them to or help them find qualified persons to help them through scientific and technological means, or introducing them to the same Jesus who commands demons, "Come out of the man, unclean spirit." Jesus was more than willing to heal the grave-dwelling crazed man, and he is more than willing to heal any of our sisters and brothers. That's why the Lord expects us to do what we have been equipped to do and leave the rest to him. There, but by the grace of God. That could be you or I. Be blessed. Here's my question again for the last and final time. What can we do as followers of Christ to help someone who is suffering from a mental illness? Can I ask it again? What can we do as followers of Christ to help someone who is suffering from a mental illness? Well, you've only gotten the taste of who my guest is. So I want to bring her back so that you can get a full dose of who this woman really is. Reverend Dr. Zoleka Adams, my friend, my colleague, my associate, this great and awesome woman of God. Matters of Faith family, welcome with me again, Reverend Dr. Zoleka Adams. And I know it's Zoleka. I don't know why I keep saying Zoleka. It's Zoleka.
Okay. You got the gist of it.
I'm stubborn. I just can't get it right, huh? I guess I'm like that guy on what's his name? What was that movie? Life. Just can't get it right. Can't get right. But thank you so much. But listen, the question I put up on the screen for everybody to see, what can we do to help someone who's suffering with mental illness, mental issues? What can we really do?
Well, I think there are a number of things we could do. It's funny, your article started off talking about seasonal affective disorder.
Yes.
That's a fairly new term. And my mother had that.
Did she?
Yes, growing up. As soon as the leaves started falling off the trees, as soon as it started getting darker earlier, her mood would change. And a depression would come over her. And as soon as the light started coming back, her laughter came back. She was fun to be around. She was vibrant. She was spicy. But I grew up scared that once the fall came, the fall is one of my favorite seasons, but I knew what that meant. I knew that I had to wait for spring for my mom to come back. And at that time, remember, there was no term for that. So there were there were no ultraviolet lights that are used now for people to homes to help with that. And so I was affected by her seasonal affective disorder in several ways. First of all, we know depression can be contagious. You can catch depression.
Yeah.
And I remember fighting within myself to keep from catching her depression.
Wow.
And I think that's part of what led me to this work. And I succeeded most of the time, but there are times that I did not. And so when we talk about mental health, we're not just talking about the person that has the situation. We're talking about the effect of that situation on everybody that they are with, whether it's in your nuclear family, whether you are at church. Now, I have to say that currently I'm noticing that there are many, many pastors who are suffering from deep depression.
Mm.
They don't want to talk about it.
Mm.
They don't want to acknowledge that. But the people that are close to them can see that they are not themselves.
Mm.
And so one of the things, since you're asking the question, well, what can we do? We can acknowledge that it exists.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We can extract the shame from it. If we can get past that, oh my gosh. If we could take the shame out of not feeling ourselves, if we could take the embarrassment and the stigma from, I can't get up in the morning, I don't know what's wrong with me. I have crying spells, I can't stop because somebody talked to me. I'm anxious, I'm pacing the floor at night. I got worried that I cannot seem to get a hold of. If we can acknowledge that these things are real without shaming people,
Mm.
if we could become a listening community,
Mm.
if we could become an observing community, so that people who are stuck in their own shame about it say, you know what? And I do this, to people all the time. In the congregation, I pay attention to people.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that as a minister of the gospel, that is my job.
Yeah, yeah.
My job is to pay attention to people, to pay exquisite attention, to pay holy attention. That when something is out of alignment, I take notice. And I let it go for a little while. Maybe it's a bad day, maybe it's a bad week. But if I see something go on too long, I just quietly slide over to people. Said, hey, Sister so-and-so, I've been noticing you seem a little down in the dumps. And am I right or wrong about that? And you'd be surprised how many times people just want to be seen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not invisible.
Mm.
So what can we do? We can help people not feel invisible. Not in an intrusive way, but quietly, gently, lovingly. Is everything all right? And we wait to see what they say. Sometimes, maybe it's a hug, maybe like Job's friends before they opened their mouths, they were good. So they started counseling.
Yeah.
The ministry of presence.
Yes.
Makes all the difference in the world. Showing up for somebody. And showing up doesn't mean you get in your car, you drive across town, and you go to somebody's house unexpectedly. No, that's not what it means. It means in the moment, being the presence of God for that person in the moment. I see you. Things are hard right now. You need a hug. You need to talk. And being available for conversation.
Mm.
So confronting our own issues in that area, reducing stigma, extracting shame, being observant, and showing up as the ministry of presence with quiet questions.
Can you say that again and explain to us what quiet presence means? Questions. You said quiet questions, right?
Yeah. Hey, Sister so-and-so, I missed you for a couple of weeks. How you been?
Not intrusive.
How you been? You know what? When you said that, Maybe I'm seeing it, maybe I'm not, but I saw a little sadness in your face when you said that. Anything you want to kick it about anything? You all right? I'm concerned. Just know that I'm concerned. If you ever want to talk, you know I'm here. Quiet question.
Making
Hey,
yourself available.
hey, brother. Everything's cool with you? Yeah, I'm cool. Yeah, I'm cool. You know me, I'm always cool. I said, yeah, well, that's what sometimes kind of captures my attention. You always cool.
Hmm.
Nothing ever bothers you. I want to be like you when I grow up. I wonder if you would tell me if anything was bothering you.
Hmm.
A sister can handle that kind of conversation if you ever want to have it with me. Do you feel the concern?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's disarming. It's not intrusive. It doesn't make a person feel like you're trying to pry something out of them. You're
Yes.
just being there with them openly to say, I'm here.
Yeah.
If you want to talk, I'm here. If you want me, if you want me to just be there and say nothing, I'll do that. I'm here, whatever you might need. That's the part that I think people miss because not everybody needs a lecture.
No.
Not everybody needs for you to correct and fix their problem for them either.
And I'm going to say something that I hope the world doesn't think is blasphemous. Everybody doesn't need a litany of scripture.
Absolutely.
Don't start reading to me from the book of John. Now, there are times where that is indicated.
Right.
That is not the default because you don't know what else to say.
Right. So that's important because I think our default is to go to the scripture and begin to read, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leadeth me beside the still water. So yeah, that's fine, but I can't hear that right now.
Exactly.
I can't hear that. I hear what you're saying, but the words mean nothing to me right now. If you just gave me that hug, I would be better.
Yeah. Unless there are times that if you want to use the scripture, you talk about what it means for you in that minute.
Yes.
Sometimes when I'm going through, I'll say, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And then I recognize that I'm going to stop crying over what I lost and I'm going to start rejoicing over what I got left.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's helpful to you, but that's been helpful to me.
Mm-hmm.
I offer that. Can I have a hug?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I use myself as the reference so that I'm not weaponizing scripture.
I like that. I like that phrase, not weaponizing scripture.
Yes.
Because some people, it's funny. There's a video I like. It says "Saving Pauline," and Pauline was a woman who lived in Massachusetts. It's a real story, and so she said she said she learned pick locks when she was 5 years old. Drank with the Hell's Angels, and I mean, I had showed that video one day, and she said this guy whom I know, he used to come around and he would be ministering to people. She said, Bible thumper. That's what she called him, a Bible thumper. And she said, but he came around and he didn't do any of the things that she thought he would do. He was going through cancer treatment. So she said he was as bald as a cue ball. But he just was there. And I started talking with him. And suddenly I began to want to hear more that he had to say. And suddenly I began to sort of, the demons that were in me, they were exorcised. And I began to want to know more about this God that he was serving.
Mhm.
And she says, now she says, I'm saved and I'm at church regularly, and it's a wonderful story because you don't have to be the stereotypical. Just be who you are. And I loved when you started, you talked about being loving and being kind and being available. Those things speak volumes of your relationship with the Lord, more so than the sermons that you preach from the pulpit.
Absolutely. 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 And we see that in the text that you read. Jesus showed up. And what's so interesting is that this man saw him from a distance. But somewhere, I believe he said, oh my gosh, maybe help is on the way for me.
Yeah. Maybe he's the one.
Maybe. Yeah. Show up. And show up in our humanity. And show up offering the love of God in that moment. You don't have to exegete a text. You don't have to have sharp homiletical skills. Just, yo, how you doing? Everything cool with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me share with you a couple of things that have been said. I got a lot of comments, but this is an interesting comment. So 2023 has been a particularly challenging year for me. I'm still adapting to the new demands being placed upon my life while trying to stay in peace in the midst of these demands. Lord, help me. Just a comment. We got some other ones. This is such an important topic. And Cheryl says Columbia University and Mount Sinai have programs for developing Christian healthcare workers. They're currently recruiting churches to teach us how to identify and assist people in need. And if it is us, then we would want to be treated with caring and kindness, with understanding, love, and respect. Teaching or training the community is important for that possibility for you and me.
So you should say that because in some of the trainings that I do, I'm very big on language and specificity around language because there are nuances that we often miss. And I make a distinction between being nice and being kind. When we're nice, that's from our personality. And we can be nice with an agenda. Have you ever been around somebody that they're nice, nasty?
Oh yeah. I don't mean no harm, but
the 10 sayings, right? And so the niceness has hostility attached to it.
Yes.
Whereas kindness is from the heart that God gives. God gives us the capacity to be kind. We give ourselves the capacity to be nice. There's nowhere in scripture is the word nice used. It's kindness and kindness alone. It's God-centered attention. That's what kindness is. And so when we talk about exercising kindness in our toolkit for working with mental illness, it's like, let the Spirit of the Lord move through you towards another and take your personality out of it. Because, our personalities can be very deceptive. And it's okay to be nice as long as you drop it down to kindness. So if there were levels, I would say kindness is nice is at the basement. But kindness is at the penthouse. Closer to God.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. I like that. It's amazing.
Yeah, be kind to me. Be kind to me.
Yeah, be kind. Yeah, don't be nice, because
Yeah, keep your little niceness, you know. I don't trust it. But if you're kind, I'm gonna see the Lord in that one.
Yes, sir. That's indeedy. And by the way, Anthony tells me that Andy King had Melly Mel at his event recently.
Really?
Yeah. So he's getting around. He's still around. And then Evelyn says, listen, ask if they're hungry, thirsty, or need anything. Then ask if you can do anything or contact someone for them. Most of the time, they're not eating or sleeping. So asking the above helps.
Yes. Yes.
You know, a lot of times people come up to us in the street and they say, could you give me something to eat? You know, and some of us get a little riled by that. You know, you begging, you ask me for stuff. And so we don't. Um, um, we could, but we don't. Not all the time, not everyone, but I'm just saying that that happens. And so, you know, it's really interesting because we talk about it theologically and theoretically in church, that if your stomach is empty, it's hard to hear the Lord speaking. But we sometimes ignore people who are asking for the basic things like food because we say you need to know the Lord first. But the Lord never did that. Jesus never did that. Jesus always fed them. If your enemy is hungry, feed them. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. For in so doing, you will heap burning coals of fire on their head. And that doesn't mean that you're burning them up. It means that you now have an opportunity to put something in them that they could not put in themselves. That burning coal of fire could be the fire of the Holy Spirit.
We have to be with people where they are and not where we wish them to be.
Yes.
We have to be with people where they are. I don't know if you remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes, I do.
Right, exactly. So if somebody is hungry, you think they're going to talk about self-fulfillment?
No, not at all. Right. I'm hungry.
Unless they're a mystic and they're doing it on purpose.
Right. But other than that, feed me. You remember the little shop of horrors? Feed me.
I never saw it.
You didn't? Oh my God, you gotta see that. Levi Stubbs from the Four Tops is the voice. He's the voice of the fly of the plant. Feed me. You gotta see it. It's a funny film. It's a funny film, but they have a lot of people in it that have now gone on to become quote unquote superstars.
Okay.
That really, really interesting. Really, Little Shop of Horrors. This is funny. And Levi Stubbs, the voice of Levi Stubbs, you know, he made his theatrical debut. You heard his voice throughout.
Who knew?
Who knew? Exactly.
You never, right? You never know. That's why you have to always be ready.
Right. Exactly. Be ready, because you never know. And it could come in ways that you do not expect. Exactly. It could show up in areas that you did not plan, and it could become something that you never intended. And then you can find yourself where you're supposed to be.
Which is informative for our discussion, in that you never know when you're going to encounter somebody struggling with mental illness. You never know. It could be in a grocery store, it could be at church, it could be at home, it could be in ourselves. And so we never know when we're going to have not only an encounter, but an opportunity to practice the presence of God. So we need to stay ready so we don't have to get ready.
That's right.
Practice kindness.
Yes.
In our everyday lives. I took so interesting. I took a year course, actually got certified in it, in spiritual literacy. And the course teaches people how to find the sacred in everyday life. And it was 26 weeks because there are 26 letters in the alphabet. And so each week was dedicated to a letter of the alphabet.
Really?
Understanding the ways and the will of God through that letter.
Wow.
And looking for, so the first week was on acceptance.
Mm.
How was Jesus accepting?
Mm.
What was he accepting of? Are there things that he weren't, that he wasn't? What do we accept about ourselves? And if you're struggling with your mental health, the question would be, can you accept that for this moment, this is where you are until you're somewhere else?
Mm.
Because part of healing gets activated by accepting our condition.
Right.
Right. And so it was life-changing.
Mm.
It was absolute. So I got my little certification, spiritual literacy, and finding the sacred in everyday life. And it was accompanied by assignments of taking photographs, just walking down the street. So the second week was beauty. He makes all things beautiful in his own time. So we had to take pictures throughout the week of things that were beautiful.
To you?
Yeah. Yeah, just to me. And so it opened our eyes to the splendor and the magnificence and the wonder. You know, for me, it restored awe and mystery. And I have not been the same.
Wow. Wow.
And I use it in my practice with people, and it's just absolutely transformed where I am in my walk with God.
That's an amazing experience. I didn't do the spiritual literacy course, but I did do a number of different self-development courses. But one of the things that I do, and I still do it today, is take solos. Solo, just going out into the world and seeing how the Lord is operating. See God in everything. Now, what you just said, though, this kind of added something to that. You said, take a picture.
Yes.
Because that then locks it in, and you can always go back to that moment time and time again, so that if you happen to be at a space and a place that you become sort of disconnected from God's grace, his mercy, his love, and his beauty, you can look back and say, oh yeah, I remember seeing that. It's like creating a vision board, right? Create this vision board, and you look at it when you start to feel like I'm disconnected. You pull out your vision board and you say, wait a minute, I remember. And then all of a sudden it pulls you back to your sense of who you are, the reality of the way God is working through you, and knowing that you've got to go through some things in order to get to where you're going.
Absolutely. And it increases our awareness of God's omnipresence.
Yes. Yes.
That whether I'm down in the dumps or whether I'm on the valley, God is with us. He is, that indwelling spirit is here, and God is moving on the outside. And
yes.
I'm waking up every day expecting to see something beautiful. Because it's there if we look. And so that first week we did acceptance and awe, understanding awe and rediscovering awe. So little things, a child laughing. And if you're a depressed person, this is so helpful. This is so helpful because, you know, depression has a voice of its own. It does horrible things. It tells us you're nothing. I don't even know why you're trying. You know, you trying to be on this program. Who are you to think you could be on the program? You know,
or who you are to have this program.
Yes, all of it. You know, depression just has a horrible, horrible voice. And similar to the man with demons, it tells us. It tells us all the things that don't come from God.
Right.
It would have us to believe that we are not the apple of his eye. And so when we start to incorporate these principles that are all throughout scripture, and we wake up and we say, wow, you know what? Those plants are really pretty. I never really noticed them before. Let me get up and water my plants. Do you know what that does? It activates another part of our brain and our creativity. And our creativity is created to the creator. He gave it to us. It gets us moving in a different kind of way. Oh, wake up and look out the window. I'm here again. Look at those trees. Oh my goodness. To start to appreciate the abundance of blessings that God has put within our eyesight if we wake up and see. And so those are some of the antidotes to some of the mental illnesses that we struggle with, or if we have impaired mental health. Because, we all have mental health.
Right.
Some of us have more and some of us have less.
Right.
And it's only mental illness when we start to lose the capacity to deal with the everyday stresses of life. We find ourselves not being able to cope. That's when the trajectory moves to mental illness. So we all start off with mental health.
Right.
And some more than others.
There's I'm a part of the Rotary Club, and we have a mental health committee that we put together because the international president, one of his theme is create hope in the world, and his brother committed suicide a number of years ago, and so he has a desire to help in that area. So he's challenged the Rotary clubs, and as a district governor, the district governors to get their districts involved in mental health and try to help in this area. And so we put together a mental health committee. One of them is on with us, Evelyn Graham. She's with us now tonight. She's viewing with us, and and we're literally trying to look at how we're going to do that as a district. And the district's pretty decent size. It's Staten Island, Manhattan, the Bronx, Lower Westchester, and Bermuda. And so we're doing this. Yeah, how about that? So we're doing this. And one of the things that we've done is we started it with a club in Chinatown, because in the Asian Chinese culture, mental illness is a taboo subject. And so we started it there, but we want to take it, and they did some training on that. And we want to take that training and move it around so that the clubs in the various areas can do it in their locales. And so it's an interesting foray into that area. But I know how important it is. That even a little bit is better than nothing.
Yes.
We've been doing nothing for so long, and people are really struggling with that. And the topic was, Evelyn can correct me if I'm wrong, was remove the stigma.
Yeah, that could be used anywhere. I find it interesting what you're saying, because mental health / mental illness is culturally conditioned.
Yes.
And that each culture has its own explicit and implicit rules in ways and more ways about what's outside of being, quote, normal.
Mm. Mm.
So what we may find in the African American community may be a little different
Yes.
in the Asian or a Japanese,
Yes.
because we certainly want to get away from seeing people as monolithic,
Mm-hmm.
just because they may appear similar on the outside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we know that Nigerians are very different from Somalians,
Yes. Yes.
right? And sometimes there are regional differences,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
northern Black folks are a little bit different than southern Black
Yes.
folks.
Yes, they are.
Midwestern Black folks,
Right.
and so how do we get to learn about and accommodate those subtleties and those differences in how we talk about mental health / mental illness? That's a fascinating project.
It is. It is. I actually want you to be a part of it because you don't have to be a part of the Rotary to be a part of it because there's people who are friends of Rotary because it's really the common denominator is wanting to serve humanity, right? That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter. You don't if you decide that you want to be a part of that particular organization, that's fine. We do great things, but if not, it's okay. We may be involved in a project that you want to be involved in, and you can become involved in that. That I think is the beauty of community when you're
Yes.
really bringing people together for the good of everyone. I give you another, for instance. We started chaplaincy, right?
Yes.
And so I was looking to train the chaplains in CPR because as a chaplain, you may find yourself anywhere. And people have a heart attack. You need to know what to do. So I was looking around. I called up all the major organizations and stuff, and they wanted to charge us a lot of money to do this. Well, I reached out to one of the Rotary clubs, and they're a group of doctors, and they said, "Oh, we'll do it for you." They got excited. They came and they did it. They trained 27 of us. We all got certificates. They said, just pay for the certificate. We'll do the training free. So they came. They brought the dummies. We did the training. They trained us. And then at the end, they said, I said, we came, how much is the certificates? He said, don't worry about it. We're gonna give that to you. Don't worry about it. And they did. Now, here's the interesting thing. They're a group of doctors. They're from Pakistan and they're Muslim. And most of us are Christian.
There you have it.
But what difference does it make? The dominator is that we desire to help humanity.
Exactly.
And then they gave the church where we did the training at, they asked the pastor, do you have an AED machine? He said, no, we don't have one. We're going to give you one.
What?
2 weeks ago, there was a meeting. I'm the district governor. I went to speak to them. They presented the pastor with an AED machine. Now, if you had a sense of depression, because after you get trained and you realize that this machine is vital for human life, you don't have one. And you think about this, that every institution, churches or otherwise, that where large numbers of people congregate, you need an AED machine.
Yeah, yeah.
We need one. And many times we're woefully short of the resources that we need to take care of the people in a way that would be life-saving.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they kind of opened my eyes to what's possible.
That is wonderful.
And then see, I like it because it gives me an opportunity to pull all these, this district is the most diversified district in the world, literally in the world. Not by design, but we're in New York.
The demographic itself.
The demographic, right. So we've got clubs that are from Pakistan, they're from India, they're from Yugoslavia, just amazing. Everywhere. Italy, Africa, it's just amazing. And I get to meet and greet all of them and share with them what I know and bring my spirit, that spirit of presence there. I don't have to preach a sermon.
Right.
I just got to be kind. That's what you said, right? Kind. Not nice, but kind. And let them see who Christ is in my life.
That's it. You live the sermon.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, you live the sermon. We do know that words are the least reliable form of communication.
That's right. That's right.
Because some of us are wordsmiths. We could slam some words together. But does it match our hearts?
Right.
Does it match our walk? That's what I look for.
Yes.
Is there alignment between our word and our walk? The word and our walk. Yes. So showing up and being available to the presence of God, however it manifests. We're Christians, people are Muslims. We believe what we believe, they believe what they believe.
Right.
But essentially, we're people, it's not going to diminish Jesus for me in any way, shape, or form.
None whatsoever. That's right. That's right.
And it's not going to diminish Allah in any way, shape, or form, but we can sit at a table and break bread, because in the end, when we go into the ground, guess what? We're going to all look the same.
Exactly. I was talking with a gentleman today. I got a telephone call, and I want you guys to pray for this young man. Friend of mine texts me. She's in Texas. She texted me to tell me that her son is in critical condition, and she asked me to pray for him. And he was in a car accident last night. You might have seen it on the news. There's 4 people in the car. 1 didn't survive, and the other 3 are in the hospital. He took the brunt of the damage of the physical injury. And she texted me, and I called her. She told me that he's in Elmhurst Hospital, so I went out to visit with him. And I met the father, and I stayed with him for a couple of hours, just talking with him as they prepared his son for surgery. The presence, just to be there and to speak with him and to know that he didn't know me, but he felt so good when I got there. We were talking, and he was asking me questions about so many different things that it gave him that sense of comfort. And that's what we do, right? That's who we are. It wasn't about me just being, but when the mother reached out to me, I know she was reaching out to me because she felt I was close to her son. I was closer physically. I never met him before, but I was closer physically, and that I could go and perhaps pray for him. She didn't ask me to, but I wanted to do that. Yeah. That's the point that makes me feel like what we do is so significant. Doesn't have to be grandeur, just has to be real. Just has to be real.
That was good chaplaincy.
Huh?
That was good.
Yes, it was great chaplaincy. That's what and you do, and so the chaplain of the hospital came by, and he happened to be Catholic, and he happened to be from Nigeria, and we had a great conversation there, talking about this young man and so on and so forth, and so that's what I'm saying. But you just, that's what we do because of who we are. It's not the doing, it's the being. Because if you're being who God created you to be, the doing becomes easy.
It flows.
Yes. Cheryl, by the way, Cheryl says something to you. Cheryl wrote, she says, I'm so blessed to have Reverend Adams in my life. She has helped me tremendously in dealing with the challenges I had and have, dealing with my loved one, with mental health, and myself. So I wanted to make sure you heard that.
Oh, she's one of my beloved sisters from Mount Carmel. She's a deacon now.
All right.
I love me some Cheryl.
All right. And Evelyn says, I'm so glad that I tuned in. It's a very good topic, mental illness and the church's role. The church can make or break a person's spiritual life if they're rejected by the church.
Yes.
They never return.
Yes.
So, we've got to Be better so we can do better. Like you said, we need to stay ready so we don't have to get ready. So
Yeah,
if we be better, we can do better. And so
absolutely.
the training that you're talking about helps us to be better. And then once we get to be better, then we can do better. By the way, we're almost out of time. So I want to turn it over to
Went
you
by
so that
fast.
you can so that you can share with us whatever way you want. And then the Lord has placed something on my heart that I want to share in closing. But I want to thank you. And then I'll say a little bit more about that. But I want to let you say whatever you need to say, and then I'll close it out.
Well, first of all, I just really want to thank you. This has been a long time coming. We've been
Yes.
talking about this forever, and I am so glad that we made it happen. This was a wonderful, wonderful interchange. And I feel excited, and I think there's some things that we could talk about after this. And if there's anything that I wanted to leave with people, is what you said. Therefore, the grace of God, go on. It could have been us. It could be us. And if we live long enough, it might be us.
Mm-hmm.
So let's cultivate a heart of generosity, hospitality, mindfulness, love, compassion, and let's let the Lord move through us and be alert for opportunities to learn and listen. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You know, I opened my sermon yesterday at the Evangelical Church of God with some encouraging words that I found in Ayala Van Zant's book, Until Today, that I want to share with you tonight. And I quote, "It is your responsibility to take the necessary steps to ensure that what is going on inside of you is in perfect harmony, because everything you desire will happen through you, not to you." She went on to say, "Be peace, be joy, be strength, be wisdom, be creative, be inspiration, be a delight, be a helping hand, be a smile, be a hug, be a success, be gentle, be kind, be hope, be faith, be the truth, be trust, be honor, be forgiving, be patient, be calm, be encouragement, be discipline, be obedient, be fun, be prayer, be freedom, be wealth, be respect, be fearless, be a friend, be loved, be the miracle, be the responsibility, be the opportunity, be the purpose, be the mission. Begin within, allow all things you know how to be blossom into the truth of who you are."
Beautiful.
We could all use an inspiration every now and then, and that's some good stuff right there. That's some good stuff
Sure
right
is.
there.
It
And
sure
during
is.
this season of increased sadness, no pun intended, it is imperative that we find the help we need, or that we lead, guide, direct, or provide the help others might need. People will go to the doctor if they're not feeling well, especially in the wake of COVID, but we are still reluctant to seek help when we are incapable of being the person God created us to be because we are having psychological issues. The behavior and supernatural strength of this demonically possessed man in the text from Mark are some of the same symptoms and behaviors people today exhibit who have disorders that can be identified using modern medical terminology. While many of those disorders can be treated and even controlled with psychotherapy and or medications, there are still those whose illnesses are demonic origins and need spiritual intervention.
Yes.
Thankfully, we see in the text that the demons will respond and submit to the power and the authority of Jesus Christ. That man's one encounter with Jesus freed him from his internal torment and restored him to his right mind.
Absolutely.
This man who lived among the dead came out of the tombs and never went back. One encounter was all it took. Early that morning, he was a demon-possessed man that no man could hold. That afternoon, those who fed the swine went out to see what happened and saw the man who had been possessed with the legion, that is, thousands of demons, sitting and clothed in his right mind. What can we do as followers of Christ to help someone, to help anyone who is suffering from some sort of a mental illness? Remember, there, but by the grace of God, it could be you or it could be me. Thank
Amen.
you, Reverend Dr. Zalika Adams, my
Thank
first
you.
guest for 2024. You know,
Yeah.
you set the bar up real high. You know that, right? So everybody that comes after you, they got to come up high. You not
Amen.
only shared pearls of wisdom, but you gave us principles and doable techniques that we can use every day to help ourselves and others navigate the turbulent waters that lead to psychological wellness. You have been able to moderate both your professional and spiritual lives in such a way that people have gotten what they needed at the time they needed, secular or spiritual. And I respect your gifts and your willingness to let us tonight glean from your storehouse of wisdom. You've been so gracious to us. I thank you so much.
It's my
I want you to
pleasure.
come back and share with us again. And you don't have to wait for an article of your favorite topic. Just come. Just come. There is so much we can learn from you. I just want you to do that. Would you do that for us?
Yes.
I appreciate that. I
Yes.
do. I do. Now, don't forget our advertisers and sponsors, please. The JLR company, J. Lauren R. Consulting, LLC. Those are my companies. For all your church financial needs, church training, church trustee training, property development. You want to know how to keep your property and not lose it? I can help you to do that. For all your church financial needs, just call us 718-328-8096 or go to our website, www.jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. It's not about the castle. That's brick and mortar. It's about the kingdom. That's spirit and soul. Matters of Faith, the book. I've been talking about it. This is the book. That's the book right there. See how thin it is? And I'm working on some others. Trust me, I'll get there. But this is the book. You got to have this book. If you cost $23.92, and you can just send that. You can use my Cash App, $ Matters of Faith, and I'll send you the book. Just put in there your address. I will make you sure that you get the book. And also, you can get it as an ebook. And that information I put in the chat earlier, www.smashwords.com/books/view/993-177. Now, Better Mag Magazine, that's a publication that they do marvelous work. The publisher is an editor. She's a phenomenal woman. She's been on my show a couple of times, but www.abettermag.com. A 2-year subscription is only $27.50. And we support each other. You know, that's how we grow, when we support one another. And please, man, please, sir, don't forget, subscribe, like, and share this YouTube channel, the Matters of Faith YouTube channel, because as of today, we're now broadcasting on our YouTube channel. So you got to make sure that you get it. Telephone, text, email, any way you do it, but tell a friend to join us regularly on Monday nights for Matters of Faith, the radio show. We are going to be live on YouTube, and if there's a way for me to drop this recording onto our Facebook page, I will do that. But in the meantime, this is an experiment. I hope it works well. So I ask you every week, because this is the time I've been telling you that we're going to do it. The first session in January of 2024, we have done it. The first broadcast of 2024, we have done it on Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Now, the Lord bless you, the Lord keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Now, if no one told you this today, let me be the first to say, I love you, and there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. So get used to it. God bless you, and good night. Now,
Good night, everyone.
yep, hold on for 1 second. Don't leave.